The next 24 hours for XRP are crucial, not only for the token, but XRP and crypto holders, as we recently saw XRP make this move with a break above the 10 and 20 EMA, a crossover. However, it is on declining volume. And in this video, I'll cover what this means and what needs to happen over the next 24 hours for XRP to break to new all-time highs this January. Now, all of this is occurring during a time where the macro backdrop is quite uncertain. The national debt in the US continues to climb, currently sitting at unprecedented levels of $36.3 trillion. In other words, the debt has now climbed to 122% of the debt to GDP ratio, and just 25 short years ago, we were sitting at less than half of that for only 60%. This is beginning to feel unsustainable. All of this while the US aggregate inflation remains at unreasonably high levels as well. We're talking 26% over the last 4 years on aggregate. What that means is over the last 4 years, it cost you 26% more dollars in order to get the same value. So for example, your rent costs more, your food costs more, your gas costs more. Virtually everything in your life costs 26% more, yet you're not getting more product or value. The value of the dollar is decreasing as we continue to print trillions. So eventually something is going to have to break. And then when you combine this with the fact that the chairman of the Fed, Jerome Powell, stated he does not need to rush to lower interest rates. And in his hawkish remarks, he basically stated that this may point to borrowing costs remaining higher for longer for households and businesses alike. This sent markets flying. The Dow Jones had one of its worst losing streaks in history and went down for a straight 14 days before having some sort of a retrace, and is currently sitting at those local levels. Bitcoin dumped from 108K down to 91K. And in that same period of time, XRP was down a whopping 27% from December 17th to the local lows. However, it was actually down even worse from its all-time high, or at least the local yearly high of 32%. So the real question is this truly a recovery for a breakout to new highs? Or will this simply be a dead cat bounce for another breakdown? Well, in this video, I'll be covering the futures market on XRP and where day traders think the market is heading so we can have more of a short-term perspective. We'll cover XRP and Bitcoin exchange flows and how to interpret these indicators. We'll be covering Operation Choke Point 2.0 and a bombshell court order that Coinbase just won, and how there actually was an agenda to put an end to crypto in the United States. We'll be covering the almighty US dollar and what its most recent chart is signaling that is to come for US markets and crypto. So as always, if you're feeling blessed and bullish, comment 777. And if you're going to be the wealthiest person in your family tree, smash the subscribe button. Hello and welcome back to the Bull Runners channel. If you're new here, my name is Paul, and you can find me on Twitter or X at PauliDeFi, PauliDeFi. And yes, we do have quite an interesting macro backdrop, which allowed for markets to really be humbled. Many people were a little too bullish. Things pulled back quite strongly from a TradFi perspective, from a crypto perspective, and a lot of people got absolutely wrecked, sold near the local lows, and then only watched the market rally against them. And a lot of the times, these types of situations create for environments where you really become uncertain about what to do next. You're worried that if you start to enter or invest right now at these local highs, like right here on XRP, will it start to break right back down? Did you make the wrong decision? If it dumped to $2.28, should you actually look at selling that position, because then it looks like it's going to go lower? That's the issue that most people run into, which is why they pay attention to things like this. This is not a very healthy metric or a trend. Consistently adding to the US national debt is absolutely insane, and I believe it's only going to get worse, especially if we go forward in the future. Their predictions by 2029 state that we're going to have a national debt of $48 trillion, and our GDP or debt to GDP ratio will be 150%. 146%. In other words, this again looks and feels pretty unsustainable. What else is unsustainable is the fact that we have such high inflation, which is exactly why Jerome Powell said he's not in a rush to cut rates because we quote unquote have a very strong economy. And although for people who don't have a consistently growing income, that may not feel to be very true or to be the case, the US dollar is currently trading 23% above its fair value, marking the largest divergence on record. In other words, in 2024 alone, these indices jumped 7 to 8% respectively, and markets are priced in higher for the longer Fed policy. In other words, the dollar is stronger than ever, and here's the chart to prove that. What this typically means is that dollars are flooding into the United States, that everyone would rather hold dollars than they would other currencies, or most likely fiat currencies. And this makes sense when you are now going to have an innovative and crypto-friendly environment in the United States, as there was a court order where Coinbase has obtained the unredacted files from the FDIC in its Operation Chokepoint 2.0. The documents show a coordinated effort to stop a variety of crypto activity, and Paul Grewal called upon Congress to launch hearings. Now, here's the deal. Paul Grewal actually resigned, and by the way, he was the top SEC director behind Ripple and Binance cases, and he suddenly resigned back in October, the same day the agency filed an appeal in the Ripple lawsuit. So it seems that he didn't want this on his hands anymore, and so instead of doing anything about it, he stepped down. Now, here's what's actually crazy. He was involved, or the enforcement officer, the chief enforcement officer, that ruled with an iron fist, recommending over 100 enforcement actions which targeted crypto firms. And so not only has he now stepped down, but now we have the full files of Operation Chokepoint 2.0. Then you combine this with the fact that Michael Saylor, one of the biggest proponents of crypto, and most specifically Bitcoin, is hanging out and meeting with Donald Trump over at Mar-a-Lago. The overwhelming majority of the Democrat Party did not support Bitcoin. They weaponized the justice system to arrest Bitcoiners, tried to tax our unrealized gains, stopped pro-Bitcoin legislation from being signed into law, and did this all under Operation Chokepoint 2.0, which really didn't allow for any banks to mess or meddle with crypto when it came to off and on ramps. That said, Saylor said he would be open to advising Donald Trump on Bitcoin, and then he was at Mar-a-Lago, and I think it's safe to speculate that something big might be brewing here, as Donald Trump is not only going to repeal all of this negative crypto legislation, he is also going to shut down Operation Chokepoint 2.0, and Bitcoin and crypto will skyrocket like never before, and I quote him. Now, when it comes to crypto, and more specifically XRP, I do think it pays to pay attention to something like Bitcoin and also the TradFi markets. And the reason for that is because XRP typically doesn't do too well in a very bearish environment where things are also doing poorly in TradFi markets like the S&P 500, like the Dow Jones, and even like Bitcoin. However, if Bitcoin is in a healthy market environment, then that creates for a market environment where XRP can do well too. So a lot of the times you really do want to pay attention to Bitcoin. That said, Bitcoin has been in an absolute tear, and since February 11th of this year, when Bitcoin was sitting at about $50,000, and I'll go ahead and increase the size of that right there, you can see that we've seen Bitcoin being removed from exchanges and put in private custodial wallets like cold storage wallets or for ETFs, because at that moment in time we had about 3.06 million Bitcoin on exchanges, and since that point in time into these local or new all-time highs, we have about 624,000 less Bitcoin. And when you run an average price of, let's just say 75 to 80K, that is an insane, an ungodly amount of money. In other words, people are removing Bitcoin from exchanges because they believe the price of Bitcoin in the future is going to be higher than it is right now, which means that they are bullish. You don't remove Bitcoin from exchanges unless you are bullish. Now, in similar fashion, we've seen XRP, especially into these rallies, and I'll go ahead and really zoom in here, being removed from from exchanges as well. From the local price of about 70 cents all the way up to $2.90, we saw more XRP consistently being removed from exchanges. Now, when we saw a bit of volatility and that local high and breakdown with markets stumbling under Jerome Powell's leadership, what happened was people did deposit some XRP onto exchanges just in case they wanted to sell. But it looks like now, since that point in time, up to the current price of about $2.40 some cents, that we are removing XRP from exchanges as well. And we've got to wait for the next day or two to see what actually happens in terms of exchange reserves. But I would assume this is going to continually climb down, which means this is also very positive for the price of XRP. Now, really quickly, before we dive into the next 24 hours on XRP and what I think is going to occur and even that day trader futures data, if you haven't already and you are committed to becoming a crypto millionaire this year in 2025, go ahead and go to bullrunners.com. Check out this page at Altcoin Pro University. Currently, we have about 1,200 members, and we offer everything you need to become a successful crypto investor and day trader, whether it comes down to fundamental analysis, technical analysis, learning how to pick altcoins, DeFi yields, airdrops, being connected to some of the best investors in the game, getting your questions answered on live calls where we cover things that we simply can't or don't have the time to cover inside of these YouTube videos. Currently, the price is $197 a month, and if you get started, then you will be grandfathered in or locked in at that rate. Now, the reality is we are planning on raising this price from $197 at one point here in the near future to about $297 a month, because this is going to be like an actual university. We're consistently adding content, and as our membership grows and as more people enter, we have to make sure that we do the job of sifting and sorting and filtering through people who are actually serious and are ready to be there. So we do want a very high tier, a high value type of an environment for people, which is why we were going to be keeping the price here at $197 for a few months. I'm not exactly sure. We have to talk about this. We're going to discuss this as a team, but when the time comes, we will be raising that price. You also get 30 days risk-free money back guarantee. You're going to get all sorts of really amazing resources, and you get up to $5,000 of value with exclusive annual member bonuses. So if you get started as an annual member at $1,970 for the year, then you actually get all sorts of really cool bonuses. So with that said, if you have any questions and you simply want to check it out, then go ahead and go to bullrunners.com. You can find the link in the description below. Let's get back into the video. Now, there is one Twitter post from a guy by the name of the XRP guy who basically stated that you don't want to sell XRP until all of the below happens. So for example, RLUSD is released, which currently it already is, which is why he has this green check mark. Then when it comes to these other two things that have blue check marks, they haven't happened yet. However, they are virtually all but guaranteed. Unless, of course, something absolutely crazy happens to like Donald Trump. We're talking Trump's inauguration. Gary officially leaves. But then we have about four more things, right? The Ripple case ends with the SEC, which I believe is going to happen under Atkin and the new chairman of the SEC. Then altcoin season starts, which, by the way, we'll go ahead and look at that chart right now. And currently you can see that this others chart, which is basically the crypto total market cap, excluding the top 10 cryptos by market cap, which is a really good indicator of altcoin season, has a local low of $324 billion, right? The range high on this intermediate term downtrend was right here at about $372 billion. So we can go ahead and put a line right there. I love horizontal supports and resistances. And as you can see here, we have kind of like an Adam and Eve shaped structure. Here would be your Adam, here would be your Eve, or a double bottom. We like to call this a W because it looks like a win, and then a break above the $372 billion range. We are currently sitting at $378 billion. And so to me, this looks like a very good indicator that if altcoin season hasn't necessarily started just yet, it's definitely on its way. And currently we're already at higher highs than March of 2024. So things are looking really good from altcoin season. But when it really comes to altcoin season, what you're going to see is Bitcoin dominance tank. In other words, altcoin season tends to look like this. You see Bitcoin dominance increase and rise when Bitcoin really is the majority of the market. And then what happens is into an altcoin season, you'll see it tank similar like this. We had a 73% Bitcoin dominance, which means it's 73% of the money in the market. Then the market crashes on Bitcoin dominance down into that 38% to 40% range. In this range, you can reasonably assume it's going to be altcoin season. Now, interesting thing here, Bitcoin has consistently risen in its dominance all the way through November of this year. But since this point in time, it's put in a lower low, now a lower high, and it's very much possible and likely that as Bitcoin continues to climb to new all-time highs, wherever they may land over the course of the year, a lot of this money is going to flow into all of altcoins. And when altcoin season shows up, by the way, XRP is the next major mover, being that it's one of the top 10 cryptos by market cap, currently sitting at number 3. So this is going to be huge for XRP. XRP typically likes to move within a week to a month after Bitcoin puts in its all-time high. Then he states that Ripple's names a big bank partnership. Now, this is kind of completely speculative. It already has bank partnerships, so I don't know necessarily what it means by big bank partnership. I would assume that's kind of like a JP Morgan Chase or a Bank of America actually using Ripple tech in their backend versus their own infrastructure and blockchain. And then finally, an XRP ETF approval, which we don't have the time to cover in this video, but there is some interesting information around the XRP ETF that will be coming up, and I do believe this is going to happen in 2025. Now, when all of this happens, then you might want to look at selling, but right now we haven't even hit those first 3. So things are looking pretty good for XRP if it can maintain these ranges. Now, here in a second, I'm going to explain why I think the next 24 hours are crucial for XRP and crypto. However, I'm going to look at the exchange liquidation map, and as you can see here, the left-hand side, the red side, I've covered in many videos, by the way, and I love this indicator. I use it consistently and daily to just tell me where the majority of markets, or better yet, day traders, are actually backing and putting their money. And right now, if the price hit $2.17, then we'd have about $224 million of long liquidations, which means the majority of the money right now, or this cliff, is sitting in XRP on the long side. People are long or buying XRP thinking it's going to go up in value from the present price of $2.49. On the flip side, we have far less shorts to the tune of $73 million. If the price hits $2.76, then we're going to have about $73 million liquidated, which means there are less short sellers than there are long buyers. And this is a good indicator that day traders are long. So we'd like to see that also show up in the open interest. And that's when I come over here. You can see again the price right now of XRP sitting at about $2.48. And since this point in time, we've seen an uptrend on XRP. We've also seen an uptrend right here on the open interest and a very big pump on open interest right here upon this slight breakout above $2.47 with some short liquidations on that break to about $2.50. So that said, things are looking good. As you can see here, trend to the upside, even with these, little cliffs or breakdowns, I should say, in open interest. Generally speaking, since the local lows here, open interest has climbed. This means that longs are opening at the market, and so this is a very good indicator that we are in a healthier trend. So then why are the next 24 hours crucial? Because at the end of the day, we do not want to see a breakdown below this $2.30 range. As long as we hold this range over the next 24 hours or even break right back down to at least this $2.30 range on a daily time frame, make sure that you're sitting on that D or the daily, and then what happens is a support right here should take us to a new high above the $2.60 range. So whether we break above here about that $2.60 range or are supported right here doesn't really matter to me, as long as we don't break below here. And by the way, this type of stuff can happen really quickly. As you can see here, we've seen a lot of volatility on XRP, like back on December 9th or even back on December 18th, 9 days later, with some insane wicks to the downside. At one point in time, this was a crazy red candle. So it's very much possible, okay, that we could get a break below there. And that's why I'd like to see us hold above this range, because we had an intermediate term downtrend from here. And then when we broke above this range, we want to see it supported with some volume. And I think this is the major thing that I'm really waiting for, is for volume to also flip and turn over. And right now with this pump, this simply means that there aren't as many short sellers or people ready to sell XRP. But what it does also mean is the fact that we could potentially break back down. And so I do not want to see a break below this range. Now, even if we did on a daily time frame, and let's say a shorter term time frame, like a 4-hour time frame or an hourly time frame, that doesn't bother me as much as if we close below $2.33 on a daily time frame. So you really want to watch the days. As you can see here, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days up. It is possible we break right back down here. And sometimes these things can be violent and happen in a single move. So it's really important to pay attention to TradFi markets, Bitcoin, and most specifically here, XRP. A break here is going to hurt. That said, we also have a more of our longer term downtrend now from its local high back on December 3rd. And as you can see here, we are now toying and playing with that range. So not only would we like to see a break above this $2.50 range, it is possible that we break right back down to here. I'd like to see a break above 260 for a real move to the upside. And a break above there is going to take us to some new all-time highs. That said, we do have a very strong support here now at the $2 range, about $2.05 down to $2. So anything in this range right here, I think is an insane steal on XRP now. I don't want to see it come back down here. However, if it did, I'd be pretty cautious. I don't actually think I'd be buying a boatload of it unless you're really highly convicted about it not going lower down to about $1.48. So with all of that said, yes, the next 24 hours are crucial considering we want to hold above the $2.30 range, about $2.32, $2.33, or we'd like to see a break above $2.50, which is now our intermediate term downtrend resistance right here. So this range right here is going to be crucial for XRP. And upon a breakout above this range right here, I would like to see volume, instead of declining like this, I would like to see volume start to pick back up how it did back here into this very strong trend. As you can see, trend up, volume massively up. Okay, right now volume declining as we're coming into these local high ranges. So this is a very good sign right now, but we're in that territory where things really need to move unless we get, of course, a breakdown right here, support, and then a breakout. So thanks so much for watching this video. If you learned something new and you enjoyed the content, be sure to subscribe to the channel and then head on over to bullrunners.com if you want to learn how to do technical analysis like that, like a pro, into the next year so you can become a crypto millionaire in 2025. I'm going to be doing live calls starting this year, and so it's going to be really exciting to have you guys in the back end learning with me, and I'll teach you everything you need to know to become a crypto millionaire. So thanks so much for watching the video. I'll see you in the next video, my friend. Goodbye.